A new year is already a 12th gone, but there is so much more happening than just counting down the days to the next major holiday, especially when larb is in the air.
What's the matter? Thought you loved larb. It's too larby? Not larby enough. How many times do I have to say larb before you talk to me? You know I larb you.
In fact, February is the perfect month for fantasy and romantic poetry, often found amongst the writings of Shakespeare and Petrarch. I'm your lovely host, Garrett K. Jones, and here's the newest episode of The Right Way. Welcome back to The Right Way, where we talk book recommendations, author interviews, and creative writing tips. Now, if you haven't already done so, please make sure to click the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications on new videos just like this one. I have a great episode for you, but I'd like to share a few announcements before getting into this month's content. First up, I wanted to give you a rundown on how the author meet and greet went last month at the Hanford Library. I did mention this in the January live stream, but in case you missed that, you can click up here, by the way. But I'll give you the rundown now. I ended up selling a total of 5 books. I've set myself a goal of selling a total of 500 books for the year, so I've already hit about 1%. But that's just one event, and this isn't the only one that I have coming up. As far as I know, I will be down at DJ's Collectibles in downtown Hanford in the early part of May, and I'm sure I will have other events coming up throughout the year. However, if you'd like to help me reach my goal, head on over to the link down in the video description, and you can get a signed copy for $15 plus shipping while supplies last. You can also go to Amazon, but those copies don't get signed. Secondly, February marks 2 very special days. The first was the 1-year anniversary of The Mantle of the Fatherless going into publication. That's the 5th book in my series. Because of that, I am taking that $15 price for my books and chopping it down to $10 a title. That price will stay in place until Thursday, February 29th, aka Leap Day, at which point the price will then leap back up to $15 per book. Now, I would love for you to show me some love and buy my books as a way of saying happy birthday, because that's the other important day this month. Because I hit the big 4-2 on Tuesday, and the only thing I would like to have for my birthday is as many new readers as possible. With that said, on with the show. Last month, I featured podcast host Stephanie Gallen as my guest host. Steph brought her unique spin to her top 10 list. This month, I have her Reading Sirens co-host Heather Pantoja stepping in to provide her own reading recommendations. So, here's Heather.
Hey everyone, my name is Heather, and I am the other half of the Reading Sirens. And today, I'm here to give you my top 10 female romance authors. So, first up, in number 10, we have Sarah Nye. I love her series. She has one called How to Date a Douchebag. If you are looking for some laughs, she's definitely the one that you want to check out. Next up, in number 9, I have B.B. Easton with Devil of Dublin. So some of you guys may know me as the Twisted Rom-Com Queen on the Reading Sirens podcast. And this book will definitely give you that kind of twist. It's kind of like a dark romance, but it's so beautifully written that I highly recommend it. And BB Easton is super sweet. She also has one of her books turned into a show or a series on Netflix, I believe. So check her out. In the number 8 spot, we have Sarah Echeverry Smith. This book on location was so sweet. It had me wanting to go and explore on my own, just like the main characters in the book. Her characters are so real, and her family dynamics. You will be wanting to call up your grandmother, hang out with her, and just kind of reminisce if your grandparents are gone like mine. So I highly recommend her. She's super sweet. Every book has been amazing that I've read by her. And at number 7 is Rachel Van Dyken. She writes a variety of genres in romance. She has dark and twisted. She has fantasy, rom-coms. I highly recommend her. She's super sweet. She's one of the most positive authors I've ever met. So you've got to check her out. And at number 6 is the Queen of Angst herself, M. Robinson. She's also co-written a book with Rachel Van Dyken. A couple of books, I actually think. But her books I've been reading for a very long time, since probably like 2016. And there hasn't been one that I haven't loved. And she's also one that has the ability to write in different genres or like different tropes in romance. So I highly recommend her. She's got it all. And if you're not following her on Instagram, you're missing out. Okay, we're down to number 5. And that is going to be the one and only Sonnet Dev. Her books, it's like wrapping you in a hug. I've loved every single one that I've read. This one in particular was fantastic. It gives you 3 generations in a family. You get to hear some of the most hilarious date stories, traumatizing ones. And she's just got this personality that comes out in her characters that you can't help but fall in love with. So I highly recommend her. Okay, lucky number 4 is going to be Catherine Center. Hello Stranger is something I don't think I've ever read anything like. Her books all have real characters. To me, they're real characters. Like it could be somebody you'd meet on the street. And this one really teaches you a lesson of you work with what you got. So if you weren't able to see people's faces anymore, you would just look for other characteristics. And I love how she always has like a positive note or reinforcement in all of her stories. So make sure you check her out. Okay, number 3 has a special place in my heart. It is Tiffany DiPartolo. She has written books that will not give you a happy ending sometimes, and it's okay. So the first book I've read of hers, I'm stuck with it. And this one was just as good. I waited to make sure I was prepared, but I cannot recommend this book enough. It's got the twists, the turns, the romance, the angst. I highly recommend it, and I recommend all her other books as well. Okay, number 2 is none other than Amy Harmon. And I read this book in 2016, and it still has the ability to pull emotions from me just by thinking about certain scenes. And if that book can do that to me, it definitely has to be like in my top. And this one definitely is. It's so well written. It touches on a lot of like different issues. It's got veterans in it, and it's just one that will really touch your heart. So I highly recommend it. And all of her books as well will get you in the feels. And how could I not pick this one for my number 1? So a lot of people, went on the 50 Shades kick, and I read them and I looked at an article that was like, what should you read next? And it was The Mother Road by Megan Quinn. And so I jumped into this one next, had me laughing my butt off. This book is so hilarious. Let me tell you, you'll never look at apple juice the same. And I think Megan is my most read author. I've read 43 of her books so far. I've got a little bit more to go to finish her, list, but that's one of my goals this year. But I highly recommend her books. She has a whole bunch of different tropes, sports, rom-coms. She's got it all, family. I highly recommend it. She's a sweetheart, and you can't go wrong with the Megan Quinn. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you've read some of my recommendations, let me know on Instagram and let me know what you think. Have a great day.
A big thank you to Heather for being this month's guest host. If you're interested in picking up one of the books mentioned in her segment, You can find that list of titles and their ISBN numbers down in the video description. What do you do when you're the grandson of Darth Vader? You follow in the legacy of him turning to the dark side of the Force and... Wait a minute! I need to fire my writer. Look, I've been telling you for weeks, the guy's name is Rylo Kinn, not Kylo Ren. He's from Canada, not the Mos Eisley Cantina. Get it right next time. Okay, anyway, here is Rylo Kinn, author of The Dragon's Flute. All right. Hey, Rylo, how you doing? Thank you for joining me. It is a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So tell me about what it is that you work on and what you write.
I write dark fantasy, and I'm working on a series called Draconia, and the first book out is The Dragon's Flute. So book 2 is coming next year.
Very cool. So how'd you get into writing? Was this something that you've always wanted to do, or did it just become kind of a natural progression with, from everything else that you've experienced in your life?
Well, I've always done writing, but I never took it serious. And then as I was writing Draconia, it was just a project I had going for fun and hobby. And then I guess I went through a divorce in 2018, and then I decided it was a long, drawn out divorce. So I thought I'd just continue writing. And then by doing that, I end up running into other people that inspired me to keep going. And then I met a friend that has her marketing company, and she read it and said, let's do something about this. Let's have some fun. So I thought, okay, let's try it out.
It's really cool.
So here we are. Yeah.
That's really cool. And you're a musician as well, right?
That's right. I from a family of musicians way back to great grandpas and grandmas. They all played violin and did all the dances and pianos, and it's just, I think I'm the least most musical of them all.
Hey, no worries.
But,
that's cool because you play guitar, right?
Yes, that's right. Play guitar, I sing, dabble into a bit more of other things, but guitar is my thing.
So obviously, as a writer, you've been inspired by people that you've talked to. I would assume music is a huge inspiration for you. What are some of the other inspirations that you have that feed into your writing and your creativity?
Just travel mostly. Like you say, life experiences, right? You meet so many people over the years, and you're always meeting somebody new with such character that you kind of infuse them into the characters of your stories and stuff. But if I go way back, I think the first movie I ever saw was Star Wars in the theater, right? The New Hope. So my dad took to me, and we had planes, trains, and automobiles to get there, right? Like it was a huge journey back then to get to a theater. And so I was like 5 years old, I believe. And then, and back then it was so entertaining. Like they had people dressed up before the shows, and they'd wander around the theater. And I guess I was running around the corner, and there was Darth Vader. And wow, that just ended me right there. I was like, so I'd have to say George Lucas definitely had a really huge impact. Well, way back then, anyway.
That's really cool.
Yeah, from then on, I think Marvel Comics, Stan Lee pretty much raised me, and until I got into other thicker novels, some Stephen King, Dean Koontz, to just a lot of it. Until then, finally, Lord of the Rings sort of happened, and you got a lot of all that stuff sort of built up. Douglas Adams is another one that I just love to read, and so I'm not 100% inspired by, say, too many things to do with fantasy as more to fiction and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I know Merlin, all that stuff too, is always a fun thing for me too. So
Yeah. So, what was one of the hardest parts or the biggest challenges that you faced in the writing process and the publication process of The Dragon's Flute?
the hardest thing, it would be one I was asked to start looking into. Let's do the publishing and stuff. I found that it's not just about writing the book; it's the marketing. All of a sudden you're open to this whole new world, and I mean, I don't even use social media platforms. I mean, just a little bit, right? And so now I had to get onto Instagram and create all these followers, and won't get bored of your stuff, right? They keeps them coming back and everything, and having to do all that without your book published. So
Right.
you're trying to tell the world that you're a published author, but you have nothing to show.
Yeah, there's a lot of promotional stuff that goes into it,
Well,
and you have to make it work.
that's why I say anybody has ever asked about writing, I say writing a novel is half of it,
Yeah.
and the other half is everything else,
Yeah.
selling it, right?
So,
Yeah.
and you mentioned advice, and we're getting ready to wrap up here. So that brings me to my next question. What advice would you give to other would-be authors that are watching this interview? What would you say to them?
I would say never give up, never stop, and just whatever you do, write because you love to write. You're not Don't do it for money or fame, by God, no. Do it because you enjoy doing it, because you're gonna spend all your time doing it. You have no social life, and you're gonna be writing. So if you do not like it,
Don't do it.
you're
Yeah.
not gonna do well.
So, Rylo, how can people get a hold of your book? What's the best way?
I'm available on Amazon and in Kindle. And if you are in Canada, you can find me on Indigo and Chapters and Coles bookstores. It's starting to spread out. So,
That's
but
awesome.
yeah, you can find me on Indigo as well.
And you do some local author events as well.
Oh yeah, I am always out and about. I mingle. I've done radio station interviews, tons of podcasts, local stuff. I try to keep with the community. It seems like at first I tried to jump in it all and try to take the world. With social media, you kind of have those tools, but
Yeah.
then you can't, because everybody's got that idea. So I managed to make it more home, and it does spread out, but I focus on home and try to do with the community, and yeah, kind of build my fame that way.
That's awesome.
And I say that loosely, buddy.
I mean, I get it. I totally get it. Well, Rylo, thank you very much for joining me on the show. It has been an absolute pleasure for having you.
Hey, thanks for having me on here. You take care, buddy.
You too.
If you're interested in picking up copies of Rylo's work or connecting with him through social media, you can find those links down in the video description. Welcome back for our deep dive discussion into poetry. Last month we discussed lyrical poetry and the steps necessary to develop your poetry in ways that express your emotional experience while connecting with readers who might have had similar circumstances. This month we are digging into one of those specific types of lyrical poems, and given how Wednesday was Valentine's Day, that particular form is called the sonnet. Sonnets became popular in the late 15th to early 16th centuries, and while there were many poets who wrote in this style, there are two names that tend to stand out as synonymous with them: William Shakespeare and Francesco Petrarca, or Petrarch, who both generated two sonnet styles still used and discussed to this very day. So let's start with their similarities. Both the Shakespearean and Petrarchan styles have a total of 14 lines, and each line has 10 syllables. And that's pretty much it as far as similarities go. So let's go Italian. and examine the Petrarchan style. Petrarch broke his sonnet into two sections. The top section included an octave or 8-line stanza followed by a sestet or 6-line stanza. The two stanzas were hinged by a volta or a turn that shifts the tone of the poem. Petrarch's rhyme scheme is as follows: ABBA, ABBA, followed by CD, 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 or CDE, CDE, CDE. The Shakespearean sonnet also has a turn, but it happens further down in the poem. Shakespeare structured his sonnets into 3 quatrains, followed by a rhyming couplet. The turn comes at the start of that couplet, allowing the poem to have much more room to build before shifting the tone. Old Billy also played around with more rhyming than Petrarch did. While Petrarch only used 5 rhyming sounds, Shakespeare actually used 7.
7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7.
Shakespeare used the following rhyme scheme: A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. Let's take a look at another key feature of a sonnet, which is the theme. Most sonnets invoke strong emotion, usually love. But you can also express heartbreak, sorrow, betrayal, or even decisiveness. Sure, it's not an emotion, but you can use the poem to express a mission statement of sorts. Here's an example of a Shakespearean-style sonnet from my own book, The Lover, the Fighter, and the Philosopher. 9. I walk the path between light and dark, keen to the knowledge that a simple choice can push me, shoving me to either side, clean in light or slick-oiled in shadow. This man I can be is robed simply, like a true nomad, following the path of the force that created me and all things. My clue to this is that I merely walk a course that could be swayed to light or to dark. I am hoping that as I move in life, I will make a difference. But now hark, it is time to pathwalk, not dark but light. I made my choice, and light will be my deed, as now and forever Jedi I be. So here are 7 steps for writing your sonnet. Step 1. Choose a theme or problem that you want to address in your poem. You can explore universal elements like love, war, mortality, change, hardship, or even religion. Maybe you're trying to answer a larger question, and this is what is used in Petrarch's style, where the first 8 lines establish a problem and the last 6 propose an answer. Whichever it is, personalize it and make it important to you. Step 2. Pick a type of sonnet. As we've discussed, there are just the 2 types, Petrarchan and Shakespearean. Find the structure that works best for you. Make sure you familiarize yourself with it so that you don't leave anything like the syllable count, the rhyme scheme, or the number of lines undone. Personally, I'm a fan of the Shakespearean sonnet. It's always resonated with me. Step 3. Write in iambic pentameter. We talked about iambic syllables last month. The first syllable in the pairing should be short or unstressed, while the second syllable in the pairing should be long or stressed. The pentameter means 5 pairings of this pattern for a total of 10 syllables, as mentioned earlier. Step 4. Organize your stanzas. You need to know the terms for the types of stanzas that you're using based on the type of sonnet that you're writing. Shakespearean will have 3 quatrains followed by a couplet, but a Petrarchan sonnet will have an octave followed by a sestet. Step 5. Make sure you follow the rhyme scheme. I've already broken down this rhyme scheme earlier in the segment, so just make sure you have it written down. If you need to research it, there is an article linked in the video description detailing the same steps, including a listing for the rhyme scheme. Step 6. Incorporate a volta, which in Italian means turn. You see this in both styles, and while typically it happens after line 8 in the Petrarchan, I prefer to save it for lines 13 and 14 when I write the couplet in the Shakespearean style. Lastly, step 7. Use poetic devices such as imagery and other figurative language like metaphors and similes, personification, alliteration, as well as strong word choices. A consolidation of syllables is a great practice for saying more with less.
I highly recommend you read sonnets regularly to get a feel for them. The more you read them, the more understanding you'll gain, and you'll get a better sense for the flow and structure. So here is this month's writing prompt. Write a sonnet in the style of your choosing. Make sure to follow the conventional structure and pick a strong emotion that you want to explore. Given the fact that we celebrate Valentine's Day in February, maybe a lovely romantic sonnet would do the trick. Even if you aren't romantically involved with someone, you can still write out a decent poem if you allow yourself the opportunity to express that emotion. Once you have it written, share it in the comments section, send it to me on Instagram or X at GKJ_publishing, or you can email me a copy at gkjpublishing@gmail.com. I'd love to offer feedback to you. Hey, thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please make sure to subscribe and click the bell for notifications for when new content is released. Make sure to tune in next week for my live stream, and I look forward to next month's episode featuring an interview with science fiction author K. Griffin Peterson and new book recommendations from author Matthew Romeo. See you guys then.